Hey everybody, welcome back to Rapid Recap. I'm Tim Verghese, joined today by Steve Marik. Steve, Nebraska lost for the first time in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Tough loss. I guess I'll just tee you off here.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? What are your initial thoughts kind of coming out of that?
Well, it was a gut punch. I think a lot of people are really disappointed in the effort, especially in the second half. They were outscored. I think it was 14-7 in the second half, and then 7-0 in overtime. It was just kind of a been there, done that already kind of feel for a lot of Husker fans out there. The overtime period is just Nebraska, whatever it is, they can't get it right. They just move backwards and they just completely fall apart in overtime. It's been an epidemic here. Last eight overtimes, I think it is, the stat floating around, where Nebraska just can't get anything positive going in that extra period. So, Illinois they had the run game going. Barry Lunny, the offensive coordinator, he was in his bag today. I felt he called a really great game. Illinois' defense started giving Nebraska's offense a lot of trouble in the second half. So
especially late.
Yeah, especially late when the game counted. So, what was the talking point all week long? We don't know about Nebraska and how they're going to finish games because they haven't had an opportunity to do it yet because they've played three bad teams before this. They've kind of coasted through wins, but I think we got our answer right now is they're still kind of working through that progress. It's a long season. This one loss does not mean the end of the world. I know the sky is falling for a lot of people right now, but it's a long season, and they're going to have things to work on, and finishing games is a big one.
Yeah, and I think the tone from just the players and the coaches talking to them after the game is a little encouraging, just in the sense of like, hey, we still believe we're a good team.
Mm-hmm.
We can't let one loss,
Linger.
Spiral into multiple losses. You can't let one loss affect you. So I generally do feel like, that there's work to be done. Both sides of the ball. Offensively, I think Dylan Raiola had a great start. 3 quarters. I said it was the best first half of football he's played.
Yeah.
In a Nebraska uniform. Even with that interception, which controversial. I don't know.
Yeah.
But is what it is. But that second half, and especially late, he crumbled, and it's not really all on him. There's that missed throw, which that play call in that time, gutsy by Marcus Satterfield, but you had a guy running wide open and you missed him. Like, that happens. The 2 fumbles, it's just the line collapsed a little bit. There were some injuries. Turner Corcoran was down.
Yeah.
Gunnar Gatula stepped up in as his replacement on the other side of the ball. Tommy Hill went down.
The Luke Lindenmeyer overthrow was brutal. You could tell that really affected Dylan.
The rest of the way. That was interesting.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. I haven't
talking
seen...
about it right now, I think that's something.
Yeah.
You could tell it really impacted him on
Yep.
the field about how impactful that throw could have been. It might have sealed the win.
They would have just been able to potentially run that down to the point where
Yeah.
you either just get a game win and not walk-off field goal, or you just score a touchdown.
And for the viewers at home, I don't know, we haven't watched the TV broadcast yet, but after the incompletion fell and Luke Lindenmeyer nearly had it, but it was just an overthrow from Dylan, he stood on the field for about
A good
20 seconds with just
kind of
defeated. Yeah, his body language was very, very bad. He just knew how big of a throw that was to miss in that moment. And so I think that really impacted him, and then just nothing went right in overtime.
Right.
And it was just a really, really disastrous overtime period.
For sure.
But Dylan, to finish off on Dylan, 24 for 35, 297 yards, 3 touchdowns, and that 1 interception, which again was kind of an iffy one. But Dylan Raiola was really, really efficient on third down, especially in the first half. Those third down throws to Jamal Banks, he had one to Thomas Fidone. They were very, very, very impressive.
Those are NFL throws.
Absolutely.
And
he was really throwing it today, and he had some really, really great tosses.
And I think we'll say this too. We've talked about this kind of all season, that Dylan Raiola freshman moment, when's that coming? We kind of saw that a little bit today, but again, I think you take the positives of the first 3 quarters, even the first 3.5 quarters or so from him, and you have to contrast that with what the first real negatives we've seen from him, and there's so much there, even if it's not, we're talking a lot about Dylan, but I mean, defense coming into the year, they had best in the country.
Yeah, they want to be the best in the country.
They have not played that way, especially the last 2 weeks. Today in the passing game, there were times where they just felt lost. Illinois' tempo, Illinois' misdirection. Illinois just had a lot of eye candy. There was a lot happening. They were running up to the line. they just weren't able to, keep him off the field, get him off the field. That was the big thing. Like there were some big third downs where, they were maybe able to come up eventually, but it's after a long drive where they kind of dominated time of possession. And then special teams, again, remember, just remains a question. And there wasn't anything really notable on Nebraska's end in special teams, but they led up, I think, over 100 combined yards in kick and punt returns, which in a game like this where it was decided in overtime by one score, that makes all the difference.
Yeah, so prior to the game, availability report comes out, and Tristan Alvano, his name is listed on the questionable side. Game starts, and he is out. And he is out, and John Hull, the backup kicker, comes in, makes his first one from 21 yards, I believe, but then misses a really big one, 39 yards, I think. I think it went wide right in the fourth quarter. That would have gave his team the lead, I believe. So that was another brutal, just shortcoming on special teams. And again, going back to the defense, what's really going to bother Tony White and Terrence Knighton and Rob Dvoracek and John Butler, the secondary coaches, the way Illinois ran the ball in the second half. I have the numbers right here, if I can find them. So 37 rushing yards for Illinois in the first half, 129 in the second half. Now, 79 yards in the fourth quarter for Illinois.
And you saw that. These aren't just numbers. Like, you saw the
holes were massive. Caden Fegan, the Illinois top running back, he had all sorts of room to run. Josh McCray, their secondary big back, he had all sorts of room to run. So they were getting gashed. It was just kind of surprising to see.
And more than that, too, I think the passing offense throughout the day, they just gave them a lot of eye candy, and it's a lot of ground that Nebraska's defense had to cover. But again, with the expectations you expected better from them overall today. I think if you're talking bright spots on the defense, Sierra Wright stepping up in Tommy Hill's absence was a bright spot, and to the point that it's like, you may have to find a role for that guy on the field. He flies around a little bit, was good in coverage, had that blitz that came up that could have been a momentum shifting. Was a momentum shifting turnover, but ultimately, Nebraska wasn't able to capitalize. But as a unit overall, I just think there's a lot of work to be done. I think this isn't par for the course. I think the stats, at least what we've seen so far, we're gonna have to check the PFF tomorrow, but it was 2 sacks and 2 hurries is what they garnered. We'll see if the pressure rate's any higher, but I just didn't think they were getting after the quarterback the best they could with what we've seen from them in the past. This was an Illinois O-line that had some questions on the interior specifically, and I don't think they took advantage of that. I think they were able to get moved off the ball a little bit. I think the linebackers at times were caught off. John Bullock had a good day overall.
John Bullock he's playing that at all Big Ten caliber, in my opinion. Right. That guy is flying around. He had that strip, that just teach tape strip that resulted in a fumble recovery for Deshaun Singleton. What happens next? It results in a touchdown for the offense on the next drive. So John Bullock is playing great. And to get back to Tommy Hill on his injury, Matt Rule confirmed that it was a plantar fascia inflammation for Tommy Hill, so that's what kept him out of the second half.
Well, that might keep him a bit.
Yeah, it sounds like
that's an injury feels like something that's week to week.
You start dealing with feet and foot with athletes. I mean, it's gonna potentially linger on. We don't know, but we'll see later on. But a lone bright spot really, John Bullock. I think I just continue to enjoy watching him play. The guy is everywhere, it seems.
Yeah, I think one last thing I just want to touch on. I think before we get out of here. Penalties. Like, I think that really messed them up. Defensively, just some uncharacteristic, not even uncharacteristic, but undisciplined play at times. Put them behind the sticks at times. Like, there were times where they could have gotten off the field. They just weren't able to. Just so much, I think, on Saturday just came down to mistakes. And again, but I do want to say this as well. Like, I think we've seen the skies falling kind of narrative around, and naturally, like post-loss, everyone feels that way. And there's a lot of feels like the same old. Nebraska kind of met their match a little bit. We talked about this kind of off camera, but Nebraska has, obviously, I think they had better quarterback play today overall. I think Nebraska had, comparable trench play overall. I think Illinois' secondary was a little better than Nebraska's today. But this was 2 teams that pride themselves on their physicality, that pride themselves on their ability to just stay in games. And Nebraska did that. Illinois did that. That pride themselves on being able to hold on to the ball. Illinois did that. A lot. Nebraska did that as well. I think there was a quarter apiece where each team dominated an entire quarter pretty much in time of possession. But ultimately, it's Nebraska that comes out, short today. They're gonna try and bounce back next week against Illinois, first road game. So another big test, I think, for this team and an opportunity, to kind of kill at this point, but what is it? Exercise some demons,
Yeah,
know?
for sure. A get-right game.
Game.
Purdue was an excellent opponent to play next after something like tonight happens, in my opinion, because it's a very winnable game. I just think that Matt Rule is probably going to get these guys right. He's going to give the greatest speeches ever, of course, like we see on the Chasing 3 documentaries. But I think they're going to go to Purdue, and it's going to be an excellent opportunity to get right and everything, and learn to finish a game, learn to win a game in the second half, in the fourth quarter especially. And you mentioned the penalties; a lot of them happen in the second half and big time moments. And winning teams don't do that, and that's what Matt Rule is trying to create here. So.
Right. But for us, that'll probably do it for us. We'll have more coverage throughout the week. Kind of once we dive back into the game film a little bit, we'll have the Nebraska football show on Wednesday, kind of diving into the film from this, lingering concerns, lingering thoughts, kind of some additional positives. I think right here we're kind of giving some snap positives, some snap negatives, but getting another day, a couple of rewatches in us will help. But this is the first time we feel like we've learned a lot about this team, I think other people kind of jumped to, and just in general, I understand
7-0.
Yeah,
maybe this is going to stop people from making those.
Yeah, and I understand
guesses,
jumping to excitement and getting excited about a 3-0 start, but we really didn't learn much about this team through the first 3 games. They handled all 3 games, where by the third quarter those games were practically done. They were overmatched, Nebraska was the opponent was overmatched in at least one department, where Nebraska today across the board kind of felt even across the board, and for the first time when you face an even opponent, you get punched in the mouth a little bit, and you can't really come out and you fall flat at the end. It's a disappointing taste, but this is something this is the next, what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, baby steps. The next baby step here is learning how to come out on top of these games.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's exactly what Matt Rule said in the post-game press conference. I mean, it was kind of a somber vibe with a lot of the people who talked to the press conference. I think they were surprised about the outcome. So I know a lot of people around here were too. So I mean, it's next week at Purdue, get right game.
Get right game, and a tough stretch ahead after that. Not an easy
Indiana's
stretch after
not
that.
looking like the Indiana of old now.
Rutgers as well. Rutgers won't be easy. So tough stretch ahead. But that'll do it for us here at Inside Nebraska with our rapid recap. But be sure to like this video, subscribe to all our YouTube content, all our content over at Inside Nebraska. We'll have stories up from the game. We'll have insight on the game. Not a big group of recruits tonight, but we'll have some recruiting updates on some additional happenings across the country in regards to Nebraska. Stay tuned for all of that. Recruiting Blitz on Tuesday, Black Shirt Breakdown on Monday, and Nebraska Football Show on Wednesday. So stay tuned for all of that, and that'll do it for us tonight.